konnichiwa, everyone. Thank you for joining. And it is my pleasure to be here with you today, whether you're here live or more listening to the recordings of this. And that's fine. But I love to interact with people. So thank you for joining us. And my name is Lori Sagawa and Pueli. I've been married over 40 years, but my name is Lori Sagawa professionally. And so glad to have you here with us. And so today we are going to continue, like every Friday, we talk about Ikigai and the Code of Bushido and the samurai way of doing things. And so one thing I like to share with people is I am actually a descendant of the samurai warrior. And when I was in an accident, if you don't know me, I'm a baby boomer born during the what that makes me a senior citizen now. And my parents both of them were Japanese. So all four of my grandparents are Japanese. I only met one, but I know the stories of all of them, and they inspired me. But then I had should we say, a bit of a rough life hard life, growing up Japanese and not understanding why kids would tease me and ridicule me and face racial prejudice. But I turned that pain into gain because I did not want that to define me. So I went through life. I was a high achiever because my parents always told me, you got to get those good grades and show people that you are a good, upstanding citizen. So I did that, went through high school, cheerleader, college, and then got married, family. But then in 2005 and 2007, I was in two automobile accidents. Actually, they were rear-ended. And the second one, I knew something was different about me. I just felt that I couldn't see straight. I couldn't, especially my brain, I couldn't think very well. And I went to be diagnosed and found out that I was reading at a 7th grade level and my brain was really messed up. But I looked fine on the outside. So that's what was hard, is that on the outside, I looked like a lot of other people, but on the inside, my head was all messed up. So I worked tirelessly for about 10 years in order for my brain to get better. So now I'm happy to say that I'm a traumatic brain injury survivor, went through all kinds of appointments, physiatrist, speech pathologist, neurooptometrist, chiropractor, physical therapy, massage therapy. So I had a lot of arduous, long appointments and a journey to get better. But it helped me to see that doctors could be my friend. I had an aversion to doctors, and there are good doctors out there, and there's some that are not so good. And I met a few of both, but there are people in the health field, the health profession, that really are dedicated to helping their patients get better. So that put me in a different position because I had never been really sick before, faced physical or mental challenges. And so what that did actually is it led me to work in the prison. And I worked with women for over 10 years about finding their better life. And now I'm helping people in everyday life to find your best life. So sometimes we go through life and we look at things and they're all in our own filter, shall we say. But if I said that, oh gosh, your shirt looks blue, it's beautiful on you. And they would say, well, my shirt isn't blue. And I said, well, yes, it is. And it's because I've had these filters on. So sometimes we need to examine our lives and our filters, because perhaps the way your life is an accumulation of everything that you've done or thought or have been through. So if you want to change your life, then you change the way you think and you change the way that you're doing things. And when I was researching after my accidents, I said I just knew in myself that there had to be an answer in my Japanese heritage. So I started researching and I found out that I was samurai because of our family crest. And so that put me on I wanted to know more about it. I wanted to know about samurai, but I didn't really want to, the battles didn't interest me as much as their mindset, their, the code of ethics that they live by changed my life. And it changed, they swore their sacred honor and their lives to uphold the code of Bushido. And if you would like, I can send you, oops, hard to see this. It's the code of Bushido that you can print and frame. And the code of Bushido includes courage, integrity, benevolence, respect, honesty, honor, and loyalty. So that's 7 words. And some people make it 8, but you know, Japanese numbers are 1, 3, 5, 7. They like the odd numbers. So I say that I believe that there are 7 codes or 7 principles in the Code of Bushido. And those principles can change your life. You know, imagine, I used to tell the women in the prison that if people adhered, I didn't want to point it out to them, but I said, if everyone adhered to the Code of Bushido, where would we be? Would we have prisons? Would we have unrest? Would we have violence going on? Would we have road rage? I don't believe we would, because you live your life according to the Code of Bushido, and I believe you'll have a happier life and a more congruent life, and a life that you can, a life that you can really embrace and be proud of, and be congruent with whatever principles you decide would be the best for you. It could be one or all of them, or you could have your own, but you've lived a life that would be congruent to your principles, so that there is not a fighting. You're like one way in public and another way at home and another way in your business or your job or profession. If you have that all to be more congruent, then you won't feel like a chameleon, because who wants to, if someone says something to you on this day and then you see them in another situation, or if you're in the same room or whatever, and they're another way, you begin to wonder if you can trust them. So what I teach people is about the Code of Bushido and how it is for today. It is for today. And also to think about the filters you may or may not have. I know I did. I don't know many people that don't have filters, because we all grow up and we are one way when we're children, and then society and pressure, and whether it's from your teachers or your peers, people become different and they think differently, but hopefully you can stay true to yourself. And that one of the principles that I love is courage. And courage is it takes fortitude. Courage is not just going blindly into a situation, but courage is actually going into a situation knowing, like, a calculated risk. For instance, in my book, Let the Samurai Be Your Guide, I talk about Chiune Sugihara, who was a Japanese diplomat during World War II, who he was a vice consul, and he was faced with a moral decision. And he had the refugees come from Poland and Lithuania, would come to his embassy and beg for transit visas. And after much consideration from his friends and his family, he decided to write the visas to save the lives of the Jewish people, because he said, what's wrong with saving lives? And there's nothing wrong with saving lives. So you didn't have emails back then, you had telegraphs, I believe. He contacted his government, the Japanese government, and 3 times they said, no, do not write those visas. But he went ahead with double courage, and he says, I have to save lives. So he went forward knowing that it could be a risk to his family and to his career, but he said, I have to do it. I have to save lives. There's nothing wrong with that. So he did that, wrote tirelessly for over a month and wrote over 2,000 visas, saving over 6,000 lives. And at the end, they closed the embassy and forced him to leave. But he knew when he left that he did the right thing, do the right thing all the time. And that's 7 words. This is Japanese way. 7 words, 7 codes, or 7 principles of the samurai. Do the right thing all the time. Not part of the time, but all the time. And when I heard about Sugihara back in the 90s at an exhibit in Seattle, Washington, I was really just taken by his courage and what he did. And there was no gain for him. There was no financial reward. It could only be negative for him in his career. And so he did, after he wrote the visas, he was transferred somewhere else. And then conveniently, shall we say, they were downsizing and he lost his job. And he had a hard time after that incident to find work in anywhere. So he went to Russia for the latter part of his life and he did some translation. A brilliant man. And what I loved about him is he always stood true to his principles. He, for instance, when he was in high school, he was an excellent student. His father wanted him to be a doctor. And he was smart enough to be a doctor, but he hated blood. So how can you be a doctor if you can't stand the sight of blood? And that's like me. It's like I get very squeamish when I hear or see or think about things that have to do with blood or injury or things like that. So I'm not meant for the medical profession, and neither was he. He knew he was more like his mother's side, the arts, languages. He wanted to travel the world, and that's eventually what he did. So he goes to the medical exam in Korea, and he goes there, and the only thing he does is write his name. That means I was here, but I did not take the test. So his father was furious, and he said, "My obligations to you have ended." So Sugihara funded his own college education and went to Waseda University and took another test so that he could learn languages. So I believe that he knows that he was fluent in 4 or 5 languages. So he's a perfect diplomat. And unfortunately, the government lost, a wonderful diplomat, because he not only was that, he was actually in Lithuania doing some work that would help the Japanese government. So that is the story of Sugihara. And if you don't know it, I encourage you to look him up. He's one of my heroes. I've never met him, but I just think about the courage that it took to defy his government and his parents. But he was answering to a higher power, really. He said he believed that that's what God wanted him to do. So that's what he did. And I believe he had God's heart, because God wants to save people. He doesn't want them annihilated and killed and that type of thing. So that is the story of Sugihara. And what I like to do is talk about Ikigai, but I like to talk about it the samurai way and shall we say, Japanese way, because Ikigai is about 4 components. Do what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for. And what the world needs is not stressed enough or talked about enough, because you can be good at something, you can earn a nice salary, but if it's not something that the world needs, then they don't consider especially the Okinawans don't consider that Ikigai, because it's serving yourself. But when Ikigai is really to serve the world, and everybody, I believe, is a piece of the puzzle. Even the janitor that cleans the, cleans and sanitizes the hospitals. Now, if they mess up or they use the wrong, say they use the wrong cleaner or they don't clean things well enough, staph infection is one of the consequences, and people die of staph. So the people say, well, I'm not important. Well, so let's say like you're a school bus driver. They say, well, that's not important. Well, yes, it is. You are carrying and transporting and saving lives. And if the bus driver is not taking his job seriously, then it could be fatalities. It could be, say, if they were recklessly driving or taking chances or just maybe even falling asleep at the wheel, that could be lives. So everybody's important. And if we were all nurses in this world, who would be cooking and who would be producing food? And my father was a farmer. So I am a farmer's daughter. And do I look like the farmer's daughter? Well, I didn't really enjoy it, but I did learn how to work hard. And that's one of the, I guess I would call it a trait of Japanese people. They work hard. And when I was in Japan, just less than a month ago, I saw people taking their position as cleaning the streets or even making the rice balls. They're called onigiris. There were some women at the hotel I was staying in. They just took so much pride in it. And that was the first thing you do when you go into the buffets. There, you go through the line and you choose what type of musubi or onigiri, and they had all these little if different ingredients. It could be natto, it could be salmon, it could be pickles, but they just did it so meticulously, and they were roasting their little pieces of nori, and they just took pride in it. And I would talk to them. I just became very fond of them. And on the last day I left, uh, well, a couple of days before, I gave them a gift because I was so appreciative of their work and just being so attentive. And it just makes a difference when you have food, that if the person that is doing it with care, even the cooking, and it makes a difference. I tell people, you go to the 7-Eleven, and it's not like our 7-Elevens here in the United States. I wouldn't eat at a 7-Eleven in the US, but I will in Japan because the food is wonderful. The rice actually tastes better and it's fresh, and you can tell that there's care that in everything that they do. All the food that they prepared, all these little dishes, uh it's just amazing. It's like a presentation, it's a piece of art. And the reason they do it in small dishes is so that you can enjoy the flavor. But not only that, you will enjoy it will come across in your food. And I've talked to other people that have been to Japan. They said that's what they notice, is that they take pride in everything. You won't see graffiti. You won't see you don't see trash cans because people are responsible for their own garbage. And so you would probably take a little bag. I took baggies or little small bags with me, and I had to I had to come to my room to dispose of them because there's usually not a place to dispose of them. It's not a public fixture. Because if everybody in Tokyo with 30 million people, everybody put their trash in the trash bins, it would be overflowing because there's so many people that live in Tokyo. Which, by the way, I went a couple times to Tokyo on my last trip and took the JR train by myself, and it's very safe. It's very the subway stations and the train station can be a little confusing, but it's also written in English. So that's what I want to share about doing it the samurai way or the Japanese way. In LinkedIn, there was a comment made about Ikigai, and someone said that he had been to Okinawa and nobody knew about it. And I said, well, possibly it could be the Japanese way because the Japanese, I am Japanese and I grew up with Japanese parents, second generation. And they didn't really sit us down and say, okay, this is the samurai way, this is the Japanese way, or teach us out of a textbook. That just didn't happen. They taught us by example. And I think that's a great way to learn, is by example. And my parents showed me how to work hard, how never to give up, to be a person of courage and integrity and honest. That was very important to my parents, to be honest. It's important to the parents in Japan also to be honest. And the first thing that the children do, or their children do, is if they find a coin, they take it to the police station. They don't keep it, they don't put it in their pockets, they take it to the police station. And they learn that the policemen can be their friends. In the earthquake and tsunami, that goes to show how by example that people in Japan learn. After the tsunami of 2011, an earthquake, a lot of money was brought ashore, and people would take that to the police station, and over $70 million within the first 6 months was returned to the rightful owners. And there was not a lot of, you didn't hear a lot of looting and stealing in the streets when that happened, and people taking advantage of people in unfortunate situations. They would have signs on the door say, we have food, or you can come and take a shower here. And it was just a lot of cooperation. And we can do so much when we work together rather than fighting or bickering, or the kind of, shall we say, more the me mentality. If we have the mentality or the spirit of giving, it will come back to you. And if you only receive, like, gimme, 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 you're going to get so full that there will be nothing, no room more to receive. And even that can go with friendships. People cut other people off because, I don't know, fear or jealousy or pride. But if we have that spirit of always giving, but not be a doormat, but give, and give with, no strings attached, then something will happen in your life. And that's why I wanted to say, this is the samurai way. This is the way that the samurai, and I believe the Japanese people, still live their lives. It's one of the safest countries in the world. And I personally think that right now, because the dollar is very strong in Japan, that it's a great place to travel. And after the tour that I led in early May, after the tour, I stayed for a week by myself in Kyoto, and I felt perfectly safe. I didn't feel like I needed to guard myself or ward off people. I met a Toastmaster friend, a friend, and then a Toastmaster friend when I was in Tokyo, and did a book sign at Kinokuniya. So that was amazing. That, and then I went to Yayoi Kusama's museum, and I wrote about that in my email. But next week I'm going to talk more about Yayoi Kusama and her Ikigai, and how it, in some ways, it did parallel mine. She's the highest paid female artist in the world right now, and not many people know about it and about her. So I'm going to be sharing about that. And I had the privilege of, you can't just go to the museum. You have to buy tickets, and they only allow a certain amount of people to come in every day in groups of, I'm not sure how many, but they timed it. And when your time was over, you are out. Then the next group comes in. Couldn't take pictures in the exhibit, but I was able to take some with the famous pumpkin that's on Naoshima Island. And I found out about that. So my husband and I went there in 2018 to Takamatsu, and went to Naoshima Island and saw the pumpkins. And so I started becoming more curious about her, and find out she's just an amazing woman, but born on a farm like me, didn't like it like me, but she found her way. And she says that I paint every day at 95 years old. So she's quite an example about never giving up, always be true to your passion. And in Japan, I don't believe they have a word for retiring, because people work and do what they're called to do or what they love to do for the rest of their life. And my father is a good example. at 99 and a half, he was still working with plants. They would bring the plants to him to his garage, and he'd work on them and pull out the weeds and trim them. And it started off being a couple hours, and then towards the end he's only able to work a half hour because he gets so tired and weak. But he worked, I mean, every day of his life, almost every day of his life. So he set a good example for me. And I will continue this conversation about Ikigai, about finding your purpose in life. And what I'd love to do is have a conversation with you and share with you about Ikigai. I can also send you, if you'd like, the workbook, or you can attend a seminar that would be more specific about Ikigai, about the four intersection, the Venn diagram. And that could be that will be another seminar that I'm doing, because I'm going to have a 3-day challenge and a masterclass after that, because I really believe that the Code of Bushido, Ikigai, and Ganbaru can change your life, as well as change the world around you and the people that you love. Because many people that I met at the prison didn't know what their purpose was, and I helped them find that. And we worked on the Ikigai, we worked on the Code of Bushido, and encouraged them to live a life that they were meant to live. And that's what my goal is for people in general. Live the life you were meant to live, and then you will be happy, because that's what you were designed to do. Like I mentioned, I wasn't designed to be in the medical field, and I would be very unhappy. And actually, would be very unhappy having a 9 to 5 job. I can work hard, and I do work hard. But if you put me in a situation in a cubicle, 9 to 5, doesn't work. So that is what I have to share with you today.